ever since allegations were made against Jay-Z by an anonymous Jane Doe. Some of the reporting on YouTube has been getting out of control, and it almost feels like there's a bit of a smear campaign going on against Jay-Z. So this woman had claimed that she had been raped by P. Diddy and Jay-Z at an after party after the MTV Awards in 2000 in New York when she was only 13 years old. A seriously disturbing allegation to make against someone, and the lawsuit was filed by a very dodgy lawyer from Texas called Tony Buzbee, who, amongst other things, I recently found out he had a DUI conviction he managed to get out of. As soon as P. Diddy was in jail, he came out of the woodwork. He launched this hotline for P. Diddy's victims, and he claimed he had 120 lawsuits to file against P. Diddy in the Southern District state of New York. Only come to find out he doesn't have the license to be legally representing anyone there. Well, he's forgotten all about them, and since December, him and a bunch of YouTubers started focusing on the alleged crimes of Jay-Z. Because anyone with their brain still intact or a little bit of integrity could easily see that the details in the lawsuit were false. There was no giant screens outside the MTV Awards. There was no party at a white mansion. And that was before she went on NBC to make even more of a fool of herself. She said she spoke to Benji Madden about his tattoo. Him and his band were on tour then. They were nowhere near it. Said the friend that drove her 5 hours to get to the party was conveniently dead, and her own father, who she called to pick her up from an unidentified gas station after the drugging and assault, said he had no recollection of that happening. There's even a picture posted on a Jay-Z fan account on Instagram from years ago of him on that same night at the MTV Awards with some fans, and someone in the comments who has an active account, so it's a real person, that she did a write-up for a prominent paper of the night, and she's been in contact with his lawyers to be a witness. She said Diddy did not host a party. He was in the VIP section of Lotus, which Jay-Z was not in. He wasn't the A-lister then that he is today. She also points out that Diddy was photographed entering his townhouse on Park Avenue after leaving the club. He lived in an apartment, not a mansion. So Jay-Z's denial is independently verified, whereas the Jane Doe story is not by one person.
I know what the burden of proof is. I know what evidence meets that burden, and they didn't meet it.
So very unsurprisingly, Tony Buzbee withdrew the lawsuit on the 14th of February. The case was dismissed with prejudice, meaning it could never be filed again and there was no settlement. But that didn't stop a whole bunch of YouTube channels suggesting that maybe there was a settlement and that this victim had been intimidated by Jay-Z, when the facts are it was Tony Buzbee that tried to get money from Jay-Z before filing the lawsuit. In other words, extortion. And I just find it really odd that these channels, a lot of whom are black, are choosing to ignore Tony Buzbee's obviously very shady recent shenanigans and his own legal issues involving drugs and alcohol, not least with a female victim in his house at 3 a.m. So what is going on here? Why do they show such little regard for the true facts in this situation? And who would be trying to bring down Jay-Z's reputation? If he had committed any such crimes, now would be the perfect time for the victims to come out and say it. In his records, he's always claimed to have a criminal past as a crack dealer that he's now reformed from. And there has always been a question over whether he was with Foxy Brown when she was a teenager, making him a It was the song that they did together that made him grow massively in popularity, a song which I used to love. But she recently posted that she didn't have nothing bad to say about him. And trust me, she's had a lot of mental health issues going on over the years, so I think we should respectfully take her word for it. Then there was the infamous incident in the lift when Beyonce's sister Solange was shown trying to beat him up, and we can see he defended himself, but he didn't strike back at her. He obviously has a lot of restraint. We never did find out what it was about. But the point is, Jay-Z's been pretty much keeping himself out of trouble and playing the family man. Most of what we hear about him is rumours, but he's been very vocal about this false accusation. Anyway, now he's suing all of them for defamation. Buzbee, the Jane Doe, and another lawyer who represented her, Dave Fortney. And some of the details are absolutely wild. The still unnamed Jane Doe has a history of falsely accusing people of assault. They say she voluntarily admitted to their investigators that Mr. Carter, Jay-Z, did not assault her, that she lied. and that it was Buzbee that put her up to it. She said the first time she met Buzbee was in a coffee shop in his city of Houston, Texas, the day she went on the NBC News to do the interview. Jay-Z alleges that he lost out on $20 million in lost contracts because of these stories. I can see they've done his image a lot of harm, but these channels on YouTube are not letting up. I just don't get why they're still choosing to believe Buzbee, who's out here embarrassing himself, and this poor woman. Bear in mind, he said nothing when he voluntarily dismissed that lawsuit. But now Jay-Z's investigators, or his lawyer's investigators, have found out who the Jane Doe is, who they haven't named. He's trying to say she still stands by her allegations. The allegations that even the dumbest YouTubers can figure out are fake. The same guy that has a special order by the court in the Southern District of New York, showing that he wasn't legally able to practice there when he filed all those lawsuits against P. Diddy. They still think he's credible. And let's look at the timeline. Jay-Z's lawyers say they found out who the Jane Doe was on the 21st of February, after that suit was dismissed. They said it was Fortney that told Jane Doe that the case against Mr. Carter needed to be dismissed as Mr. Carter, Jay-Z, had made threats against Doe's life, and it was too dangerous to continue with the case. I know there are two sides to every story, but this woman has already been shown to be blatantly lying. If you're going to come up with a story about the MTV Awards, an event which is still online, at least do some research and find out if Jay-Z and P. Diddy were actually at the same party, and if there was a party in a house, which there wasn't. And you had no business filing lawsuits in the Southern District of New York if you're not licensed to practice law there. So why is it so hard for these YouTubers to take this on board? Jay-Z's lawyers also say that Buzbee and Fortney, once they got wind that the Jane Doe's identity had been found out, threatened to double down with yet another false public statement by Jane Doe if Mr. Carter publicly revealed her name, which he hasn't. Do I think that Jay-Z would want to know who the hell this Jane Doe was, who's falsely accusing him and had the money and resources to hire a private detective? I think it's actually quite reasonable. And Buzbee has done exactly what they predicted, in doubling down and creating a narrative that it was Jay-Z's goons that threatened the Jane Doe. You can believe who you want to believe. I'm just reading the court documents. Following Jane Doe's admission that she fabricated claims against Mr. Carter, her lawyers have continued to seek to hide this reality, including further extortion threats and demands by Buzbee, Fortney and the New York Co-Counsel on February 28. Therefore, Mr. Carter brings this lawsuit to hold Jane Doe accountable for her willful defamation and her malicious prosecution of knowingly false allegations against Mr. Carter that Doe and her co-conspirator attorneys have falsely and maliciously peddled. This really seems like a genuine case for defamation. And therefore, the credibility of the victim needs to be looked into. As of making this video, her identity has not been revealed, but I'm sure it's only a matter of time. I wonder what channels she's going to be popping up on. However, a simple Google or other public record search of Doe by Buzbee and Fortney would have cast out. They knew her identity. If they're going to take on the case, at least Google her name. Amongst other things, less than 90 days before sending the demand letter, she had been in court on mental health related issues in connection with her second-degree assault charge, and her bail was revoked for failing a drug test. So she's violent and she's got a drugs problem, which I kind of saw that coming. She put it down to being autistic on the NBC News interview. Made 3 other sexual assault allegations which were either dropped or dismissed by courts. Is this a coincidence? I also understand that she's lost custody of her children, which is a huge red flag, and she has financial difficulties and a history of mental health disorders, and yes, many victims of abuse. have these issues going on. But that doesn't mean you can make up stories to try and get money out of people. I think Buzbee picked on the wrong one when it came to Jay-Z. Maybe he was believing all them rumours on the internet. But as I keep saying, everything Jay-Z has in his defence checks out. Whereas for Buzbee, it's looking worse every day. He's finally come out and made a statement to a YouTuber/lawyer called Megan Cunningham, who in her bio says arguably the most influential legal journalist working today. That's a big claim. She has a paywall for you to read all the court documents on her blog and an AI designed merch shop on her website. But she posted this screenshot. This new case alleges the same claims as the other one. They pieced together and filed in Los Angeles. That's the extortion claim. Like the one in LA, this new case in Alabama also has no legal merit. I don't think that's quite true. It's not that it has no legal merit, it's that the judicial system means that the identity of the investigators is the issue. Because they're filing this in criminal court, not civil, I believe. Sean Carter's investigators have repeatedly harassed, threatened and harangued this poor woman. Receipts, please. For weeks, trying to intimidate her and make her recant her story. She recanted her own story. She recanted her own story. You recanted her story. She hasn't and won't. Instead, she has stated repeatedly she stands by her claims. Well, she's stupid then. These same group of investigators have been caught on tape offering to pay people to sue me and my firm. Again, let's see the receipt. It wouldn't even surprise me if they actually made a fake video. After speaking with Jane Doe today, only today, it's clear to me that the quotes attributed to her in the lawsuit are completely made up. Really? Or they spoke to someone who isn't Jane Doe. He's giving us options. This is just another attempt to intimidate and bully this poor woman that we will deal with in due course. We won't be bullied or intimidated by frivolous cases. Signed, Tony Buzbee, the Buzbee law firm. JP Morgan, Chase Tower. So that's what Buzbee had to say to Megan Cunningham. I just feel like she's giving Buzbee way too much credit. I really don't know why. I mean, she is the arguably most impactful legal journalist. What do I know? It's just the more I've looked into him, the worse it gets. The DUI mugshot and how he wiggled out of that one using a technicality. I just think he uses the legal system very much as a business. He is just very messed up in corrupt politics. He's been campaigning to become a mayor and he apparently obtained $100 million out of BP. It's just giving me Tom Girardi vibes. Tom Girardi, who was married to Erica from Real Housewives for years over in California. He used his law firm to litigate against corporation who'd caused personal injury with things like plane crashes and gas explosions, and then used all the money to fund his lifestyle and didn't pay his clients. And Megan Cunningham should know she was covering the Tom Girardi case. He even tried to fake his own dementia to try and get out of being on trial, but the judge saw through that one. I just hope that Buzbee has been paying his clients. The $100 million is meant to go to the victims, not in his bank account. It's also worth noting that Buzbee has been active on social media to stir this case up. And this activity has been documented and used in Jay-Z's other lawsuit against Buzbee over in California, where he's suing him for defamation and extortion, liking posts that implicated Jay-Z. The extortion claim concerns 2 demand letters Buzbee sent Carter's lawyers before he sued, one on behalf of the Jane Doe and another on behalf of a man whom Buzbee accused Carter of raping in 2005 when he was 16. So we don't even know about this one yet, but apparently Buzbee was going on channels who spread misinformation like Piers Morgan on October the 8th and Sean Atwood on October the 7th. It wouldn't surprise me at all if the victim starts appearing on their channels, or Popcorn Planet. He loves a fake victim over there. Why would you choose to go on these sensational style YouTube channels that spread conspiracies and make veiled threats before you've even filed anything against Jay-Z? Is anyone else doing the math here? I get that they're having a hard time proving this legally, but Judge Epstein, I know you couldn't make it up, he probably doesn't understand how YouTube works and how the algorithm works when it comes to spreading false information. But he did say that is extortion perhaps, but I want to see that silver bullet before I allow it to be fired, during a 2-hour hearing on Tuesday in Santa Monica. So I've made this video because there's only literally 1 or 2 other channels that are reporting this case from the assumption that the Jane Doe has lied. Let's just say that. It's almost like everyone else just wants Jay-Z to be guilty. Personally, it's not about me wanting him to be guilty or not. I just don't think he is, and I'm just sick of the way false information is pushed on this platform. And when someone really is exposing something or has been victimized and comes out and speaks about it, there's a smear campaign against them, or they get ignored. Well, I'm starting a smear campaign against Buzbee, and it's not very hard when people don't do research. I will leave a link to the other video that I saw all the court documents on. Thank you very much to you, and have a lovely day.